My name is Janis Sweeney and I am a printmaker. I live in Olathe, Kansas, but I have a studio space in downtown Kansas City with the Cherry Pit Collective. Coming here right before COVID, I had a lot of plans to do a lot of things, and then of course COVID hit and everything kind of closed down. So I spent a lot of time building out my studio at home, working on my social media, updating my website, and then found the Cherry Pit and managed to find a space, a really great space to be able to go into and work. So it was hard for 2 years now. It's been hard, and I'm really happy that things are starting to open up. First Fridays are coming up. A lot of the galleries are opening, and so I get to experience the Kansas City art scene for the first time, really. I feel like I've only scratched the surface, and I'm looking forward to actually getting out and seeing the museums, the galleries, doing the First Fridays. First and foremost is doing the work, but I do like to get out and take part of, be a small part of the scene. So being part of a collective for me is very important to my work. I was a member of a 26 artist group in Alexandria when I lived there, and it adds another dimension. I'm able to work with other artists, collaborate with them, bounce ideas off of them. It's also important that I get to see the process of other artists, and I've found, like, I was next door to a jewelry maker, and her materials, her process was very similar to printmaking. She had embossers, she had a little press, and so we had something in common. We talked about a lot of things. On the surface you wouldn't think we would have a process that was similar, but in actuality it was very close. So every day I learned from other people, and being part of a collaborative is a gift. It really is. I think every day I'm preparing for something that's in the future, and I photograph. I go out. We've got a bridge coming down here locally, and I wanted to get photographs of that because possibly I might do some art piece with it. So every day I am taking the opportunity to not only work on something in the now, but to prepare myself for the possibility of work in the future. And I think the most common advice I've gotten from visiting artists and working artists is they have always told me, just don't worry about things, just go in and do the work. Just do the work. And so I've taken that to heart. So every day I go into the studio. I have a studio at home, and then I have this small studio in with the Cherry Pit, and I try and go in every day. I'm a morning person, so I'm up way before my mother gets up, so I have maybe 4 hours to get in the studio and do some work. And generally speaking, when I go, unless I'm specifically working on something, I start out with a couple exercises, and they're just free form type things, just to loosen me up, get me working, and then I start working on specific projects. So yeah, every day I'm working, and I don't really call it work. It's sometimes I have other things I should be doing, but I'd rather be in the studio. So art plays, I think, a big role. I mean, it's one of those things that you bring art, you bring people, and a vibrancy to that space or that community. It's a opportunity for conversation, opportunity for people to gather and meet, and without it it's just a lost opportunity. I know at the Cherry Pit next door to us we have a print shop. On the other side is a maker space. Across the street we have a couple entrepreneurial shops. There's restaurants. It's a great area for that local community to have. I mean, they're proud of it. It's part of their identity. And Kansas City is known for its great sports teams and whatnot. It's world-class museums. Art is an aspect of identity, and Kansas City has a lot of it, and it's well known, and people are proud of it. So it is important to the community, I know that. I think I'm drawn to the linear aspect and line of architecture, the history of it, the fact that it represents history. My father was a builder, and he was also a mechanic, so his shop was far more interesting to me than my mother's kitchen. So you'd go in there and he'd be rebuilding engines or building mailboxes. I mean, he was a maker, and I think I got my original influence from him. And then we're a military family, and I married into a military family, and we traveled a lot. So the landscape changed for us quite readily, and even those spaces that we returned to changed, and that was interesting to me. It was interesting to me that you take a footprint, and especially on the East Coast, they have a lot of history and a lot of old buildings, and Washington, D.C. was tearing buildings down and building new ones, and I was a big preponderance for me to think about what was in that space, what was in that footprint, how 100 years ago, what was there. And when you're going into Washington's old home and walking up those steps, you wonder how many other people, and who were they, and what were they like. And so architecture for me represents history, and that's always been an interest of mine. Lately, I've kind of even gone a little farther than probably what you would consider more abstract, in thinking of the kind of layers that footprint entails. You've got the rubble of whatever was built there for the 100 years. How many layers of that, and what is that texture like, and how does that really represent that footprint? So I've tried to kind of incorporate that layering in. Colograph is a medium that allows for that, and just been experimenting with that aspect of it. I am attracted to the history of printmaking, and so woodcut is, something that it's kind of sacred. You don't. I mean, I'm all into experimentation, but I also like just the idea of what woodcut represents historically. So Colograph to me is a little more experimental. It's a little more. It allows me to kind of do things that I think, okay, well, that's something that is me. It's represents my ideas and what I'm trying to get out of this particular thing. So it is an evolution for me. I have been more experimental probably in the last 2 or 3 years, trying to get that layering feel into my work. And so yeah, I think it is kind of an evolving matter for me. But there are some things that you look at a photograph or a piece of, or an idea, a concept, and it might not work with a screen print. For me, for me, screen print's a little more graphical. It's a little more one-dimensional. It's very flat looking. I mean, you can add dimension in it, but the way I do it, it's fairly flat. So if you're trying to get a lot of dimension in it, then I might want to go more to the woodcut or a different way of printmaking. So it's something you do have to think about, is to okay, how am I going to best represent that image?